So let's play a game. All you have to do if you want to participate is raise your hand when prompted. So the game consists of voting if you want what's inside of box A or box B. So, who wants box A? Raise your hand. All the way up. I see some hanging chads here and there, okay? Now, what about box B? Great. So box B is the winner, which is weird, right? You guys have absolutely no idea what's inside of the box, yet you still voted for it. You could be voting for a pile of snakes or something. You know what? Let's try again. But this time, I'm going to tell you and show you what's inside of the box so you know what you're voting for. So in box A, we have a bunch of mint. And in box B, we have chocolate. So let's try this again. Who wants A? Raise your hands. Okay, and B? What about B? Yeah, of course. So B is the winner. But what if I told you that you're not going to get the chocolate? You're going to get something quite different. Something that kind of looks like it, but it's definitely not chocolate, if you know what I mean. Would you think that's okay? Would you think that's fair? Well, of course not. But the fact is that B wanted to win no matter what. So it lied. Let's give this one more chance. Again, in box A, we have a bunch of mint. And in box B, this time, we have lollipops. No, seriously. There are a bunch of them here. So again, who wants A? What about B? Really, guys? You're still voting for B? But I just told you there was a liar prepared to do anything in order to win. Why do you keep voting for that box? By the way, I see some hands that didn't go up this time. What happened? Did you get tired of raising your hand? Bored of voting? Wait a second. Doesn't this ring a bell? Doesn't this sound like most of our democracies? People vote without knowing what's inside, end up electing snakes. Politicians lie because people keep voting for them. And more people get tired of all of this and then just stop voting. Of course it rings a bell. By the way, from those of you who participated, who thinks I somehow influenced your choice? Well, what if I told you that I did by choosing the candidates for you? I forced you to pick between A or B. And it could have been A, B, C, or D. It doesn't matter. But if I choose the candidates, I don't really care who you vote for. If you make people pick between A or B, you can create the illusion that people want either A or B. But probably they don't. Don't you feel that when you go to the polling station, you face a bunch of candidates that you don't really like? You're forced to pick between the lesser of two evils? Well, now you know why. Your vote is supposed to represent your will, the will of the people. It's supposed to represent what you want. But does it? And this happens because some people are choosing your candidates for you. And you might say, quite reasonably, that you don't have time to figure out who can be a candidate and what's going to be their plan. And that's true. But you do know what your problems are. You do know what you want fixed. Couldn't we just vote directly for the public policy that we think might solve our problems? But wait a second. Isn't that what representative democracy is all about? I choose someone to represent me and do that for me? Well, we're going to have to look at that more deeply. And two researchers from Princeton, Ginnes and Page, they looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer this question. Does the government really represent the people? And this is what they found. The bottom line represents public support for an idea, and the other line represents the probability of it becoming law. So I want you guys to think of an idea, something that you hold dear, one idea that you wish the government would turn into law. It can be about the economy, immigration, religion, anything. Now I'm going to show you how all of those different ideas look like in this graph. They look like this. A straight line on 30%. So that means that if no one likes the idea, it still has 30% probability of it becoming law. And if everyone likes the idea, it only has the same 30% probability of it becoming law. It's crazy. And I don't know what that is, but it's certainly not democracy. But how could this happen? Well, it turns out that there is another group of special interest, the very wealthy, people with power and access. a group that we have come to call the elites. They have their own line. And when these guys want something to become law, they're probably going to get it. And it goes the other way around too. If they really don't want it, it's probably never going to happen, even if the rest of us do support it. The fact is that we, the people, can only get what we want if it happens to be aligned with what these other guys want. And the problem is not with the elites, per se, or lying politicians. The problem is with this system that's designed in a way to breed and reward this kind of behavior. Some argue that the only way to fix this broken system is by not participating in it. But are they right? Disillusionment with politics and lack of viable solutions has been around ever since the Greeks. And some people use that as an excuse to not solve the problem, saying it is too difficult. But instead, it should be a collective embarrassment. How is it possible that humanity hasn't been able to solve this problem since forever? 50 years ago, we put a man on the moon. And last year, we launched an electric car into space, which is now orbiting the sun, and the rocket came back down and landed by itself. And you're telling me we can't figure something out for democracy? I think we're not really trying. But why? Because of money, of course. In fact, the United States spends 700 times more money on defense than what it does on electoral processes. And yes, of course, a missile costs way much more than a paper ballot. But is that what elections are all about? Paper ballots? Elections are supposed to capture the will of the people. And clearly, we're not spending enough to make sure of that. What about research in order to do better things or using new technologies? And I don't mean making machines that do the exact same thing than the paper ballot. I mean redesigning the whole system. I'm not saying we should spend less on defense, but maybe shift our priorities a little. Because spending that amount of money in the military and not making sure that your voices are being heard is like buying a Ferrari but not getting to drive it because you don't have the keys. And this statistic is not something unique to the United States. In Australia, for example, it's around 100 to 1, and in France, it's 50 to 1. So it is not an isolated incident. It is a worldwide epidemic. So we all pay for elections as tax-paying citizens, but we don't demand a better value. And this is a huge problem, because if we really want something from our government, we're not going to get it unless we solve this democracy first. If you want your government to address the problems of climate change, social security, education, healthcare, you're not going to get legislation that addresses these problems if we don't fix democracy first. We need to solve the issue in the backbone of our democratic system, elections. But what can we do? Well, why don't we start with proposing some crazy alternatives? Like, for example, what if under each candidate's name, we had a list of the most common promises they made? You know, what's supposed to be inside of the box, like the chocolate. And you had to mark which of those reasons made you choose that candidate. Wouldn't it make sense for politicians to actually know why you chose them and what you're expecting them to do once in power? And why vote in boxes? Why can't we just pick something from here and something from here and vote specifically on those things? We might create something unique, like mint chocolate, for example. But what if you don't know what you like or what you want? But you have some sort of system with a questionnaire about your needs that will tell you specifically how each policy is going to affect your life. Yeah, voting might take a little bit longer. It might take a while. But why does it need to happen in only one day? If this is the backbone of our democracies, why do we dedicate so little time for it? And you know, these ideas might all seem crazy. But are they actually any crazier than a system that says that no matter how many of us do or don't agree with a policy, it still has the same probability of it becoming law? We need to start demanding a better service from our governments and start believing in the possibility of a better democracy, of a true democracy, a system that lives by the values of speaking up, participating in decision-making, and being involved. The time has come to raise awareness of this issue and start a worldwide brainstorming session. That's all I'm asking for. And I already gave you some ideas. So build up on them and start discussing this issue with the people that you know and share it with the people that you don't know. Use the power of your collective minds, thinking together about these solutions, connecting with each other, leveraging on your differences. In other words, use the power of real democracy to come up with solutions for this imposter that we have right now. Yeah, because think about it. If more money is being spent in the military than on elections, and only a few get to influence decision-making, no matter what the rest of us want, can we really call that a democracy? To me, that sounds like dictatorship with extra steps. And if we're not doing anything about it, we are a part of it. Solving this is not going to be easy. But we need each other to value our differences and get together once and for all to democratize democracy. Thank you very much.